She looked them up and down like they didn't belong. "Sorry, we're full," the hostess sneered, not even checking the reservation list. But what she didn't know was that the black couple she just turned away didn't need a table. They owned the building and her job. It was a stormy Saturday evening in Charleston, South Carolina. The steady rhythm of rain on the pavement set the perfect backdrop as Amara and Julian Carter, a sophisticated couple in their mid-30s, stepped out of their sleek Tesla and approached the front of La Branche, a high-end French restaurant renowned for its long wait list and even longer history of whispered discrimination. Amara was a celebrated architect, sharp-eyed and visionary in her craft. Julian, a quiet mastermind in real estate and finance, held a reputation for turning dreams into reality. They had come full circle, returning to the neighborhood where they'd grown up, not as visitors, but as trailblazers. Their humble beginnings stood in stark contrast to the life they had built, but they never forgot where they came from. And tonight, they had returned for something more than a meal. The couple had recently acquired the historic building La Branche was leasing, though they had decided to keep the news under wraps, for now. As they approached the host stand, a young white hostess named Brooke barely glanced up from her tablet. "No walk-ins tonight," she said flatly, her eyes still fixed on the screen. Julian's voice was calm, warm even as he spoke. "We have a reservation. Carter, table for 2, 7:30. Brooke's eyes flicked to the screen and then back to them, her expression shifting, a subtle yet undeniable change. "I'm sorry. There must be a mistake. We don't have any Carters, and we're full. Try somewhere else," she replied, her voice now laced with thinly veiled disdain. Amar and Julian exchanged a glance. An unspoken understanding passed between them. "Would you mind double-checking?" Julian asked, his tone still patient. Brooke folded her arms, a slight sneer curling at the corner of her lips. "Look, I don't know how you even got a reservation here. We don't exactly serve everybody." The words hung in the air, the tension thick as a cold fog. Amara tilted her head slightly, her voice soft but cutting. "Interesting," she said, her eyes narrowing ever so slightly. Julian pulled out his phone, scrolling to an email, one from the restaurant's manager confirming their VIP reservation. He held it up, offering her a glance of the message. "Would you like me to forward this to your GM?" Brooke rolled her eyes, her expression now entirely dismissive. "I don't care who emailed you. You're not getting a table. You people always try to play some game." Before she could continue, the restaurant manager, Rick, emerged from the back, laughing with a group of staff. But as soon as he spotted Julian, his laughter froze, his face draining of color. "Oh my God, Mr. Carter?" he stammered, then quickly shifted his gaze to Amara. "Mrs. Carter, I didn't realize you were dining with us tonight." Brooke's face turned a shade paler. Julian smiled coolly, his voice now calm but sharp. Apparently not everyone got the memo. Rick, suddenly aware of the gravity of the situation, turned to Brooke. "There are new landlords," he hissed, his voice low. "They own this building. You're standing in their restaurant." Brooke's mouth opened, but the words didn't come. Julian stepped closer to the stand, his gaze unwavering. "We came here quietly. No special treatment. Just a night out. But instead we were judged before we even said a word." Amara's voice cut through the tension like a blade. Bias doesn't always scream. It whispers. Sometimes it's in a look, a tone, a well-placed lie, but it matters. Rick, now flustered and desperate, began to offer apologies, suggesting a private table, free meals, even a public apology to save face. Julian shook his head. We're not here for compensation. We're here to ensure this doesn't happen again to anyone. Prejudice doesn't always come with a uniform. Sometimes it comes with a smile. In moments like these, quiet strength and unshakable confidence become the loudest voices in the room. A few moments passed, then Julian turned to leave, his words leaving an indelible mark in the air. Justice doesn't need a spotlight. It only needs someone brave enough to flip the switch. As the couple exited, Rick's gaze lingered on Brooke, who was visibly shaken. But in that moment, her expression changed from fear to fury. Something dark was beginning to take shape. Back at the front desk, a sudden realization hit Rick like a freight train. This wasn't just about a misstep. It was about to cost him far more than a dinner reservation. Brooke, who had been quick to dismiss the Carters, now seemed to realize the weight of her actions and the consequences they might bring. The air in the restaurant grew thick, as if something were about to break. But what would it be? Would the restaurant face an inevitable reckoning? Or would one of them, maybe both, find themselves exposed before the night was through? As the rain continued to pour outside, the storm within La Branche was just beginning. The storm outside intensified as the night wore on, the rain pelting against the windows of La Branche. But inside, it was the calm before a different kind of storm. Brooke stood frozen at the host stand, her mind racing. She had felt the sting of Julian's words, the weight of the confrontation pressing on her chest. But it wasn't just guilt that gnawed at her now. It was fear. A quiet buzz interrupted her thoughts as her phone vibrated in her pocket. She fumbled for it, pulling it out, her hands shaky as she saw the name on the screen. Rick. Brooke, we need to talk, came his voice, tight with something she couldn't quite place. I know. I messed up, Rick. You messed up. His voice was sharp, cutting her off. You don't even realize the extent of this yet, do you? We've got a situation on our hands. She swallowed hard. The reality was beginning to sink in, and with it, the realization that her careless actions were about to explode into something much bigger than a single evening's drama. Rick's voice dropped lower, barely above a whisper, as if someone might overhear. We've already received a complaint, and trust me, it's going straight to corporate. They've got their eyes on us now. Do you understand what that means? Brooke's stomach twisted. She was in deeper than she thought. Rick, you didn't think? That's the problem. Now we've got an angry new landlord, a very public mess, and corporate breathing down our necks. Rick sighed, his voice softening just a touch. They'll be calling us in for a formal review. If this doesn't get handled right, I'll be the one looking for a new job, and you'll be right beside me. The cold reality of her position hit her hard, but the weight of her guilt was nothing compared to the impending consequences. Her actions, her offhand dismissal of the Carters, her assumption that they didn't belong, had just opened a door that couldn't be closed. Just don't let it blow up, Rick. I'll make it right, I swear, Brooke muttered, trying to hold on to some semblance of control. Rick's voice hardened again. Make it right. There's no making it right at this point. This is bigger than just your mistake. I'm going to have to answer for it. And so are you. Don't think this is going away quietly. The call ended abruptly, and Brooke stood there in stunned silence. The buzz of the restaurant around her faded as the gravity of the situation began to settle. As she stared at the phone still in her trembling hand, A low murmur grew louder from the dining area. The restaurant's patrons were whispering, their eyes flicking to the host stand, some already pulling out their phones. The news was spreading faster than she could control it. One too many eyes had witnessed the scene unfold. She needed to find a way out. A way to bury this. But it was too late. Across the room, Rick had already started to move. His footsteps were measured, purposeful, as he approached the back office to make the first of many calls that night. But before he could make it there, the door swung open with force. The restaurant's assistant manager, Carla, stood in the doorway, her face a picture of concern, and something else, something darker. "Rick, we need to talk. Now," she said, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. Rick's eyes darted toward the back of the restaurant, where the murmurs of guests had escalated into a faint buzz of gossip. He'd hoped the night would settle, that the Carters' departure would mean an end to the trouble, but Carla's grim expression told him otherwise. "The district manager's on the phone, and corporate just got word of the incident," Carla continued. "They want a full report on their desks first thing in the morning, and I just saw the social media posts. This is everywhere." Rick's eyes widened. Everywhere. It wasn't just a complaint anymore. The restaurant's carefully curated image, built on years of reputation and exclusivity, was crumbling in an instant. Brooke, still standing at the host stand, was oblivious to the shift in the air, but her chest tightened as she overheard the conversation. The reality was sinking in. This was no longer just about a failed reservation. This was about to become a public scandal, one that would have her name on it. Rick was pacing now, trying to maintain composure. "We have to get ahead of this. Call the PR team. Get them here, now." But before Carla could respond, the unmistakable sound of a phone ringing interrupted the tension. Rick glanced at his phone, his expression darkening when he saw the caller ID. It was the restaurant's owner. Corporate had already called them. "Answer it," Carla urged, her voice tight, "and make sure you're not the one left holding the bag." Rick took a deep breath and hit the green button, his voice forced into a calm he didn't feel. "Hello?" But what came next was something he wasn't prepared for. The owner's voice was as sharp as it was unforgiving. "Rick, I want you in my office first thing tomorrow. We need to talk about this. About you and her." The line went dead before he could respond, leaving him staring at the phone, a sinking feeling in his gut. Brooke's heart hammered in her chest as she realized the storm wasn't just coming. It had already arrived. In the distance, the doors to the restaurant's back office closed with a soft click. But there was no escaping the scene unfolding on the restaurant floor. A table near the windows had been quietly recording the entire exchange, and soon the hashtag #discrimination at La Branche began trending. For Brooke, the consequences were only just beginning. As the tension in the room reached a breaking point, one thing became clear. This night would mark the beginning of a downfall for someone. But who would it be? And would they even realize their mistake in time to stop it? The morning after the storm hit, La Branche was a different place. The once charming ambience now felt cold, stripped of its former elegance, overshadowed by the whispers of scandal that had made their way through every corner of Charleston. Rick was already in the restaurant, sitting at a table, his hands clasped in front of him, his eyes distant. Carla had told him the news. Corporate was taking immediate action. The owner had decided to part ways with him, and it wasn't just a reprimand. He was being let go. His lapse in judgment, his failure to control the situation, had cost him his career. But Rick wasn't the only one facing consequences. Brooke had been summoned to the manager's office, but it wasn't just a casual conversation. She stood before the district manager, the weight of what she had done hanging heavy in the air. The phone calls, the social media posts, the viral backlash. They were all now part of the reality she had to face. Her resignation was requested before the day ended. There was no apology that would undo the damage. No gesture big enough to fix the hurt she had caused. She left the office, her head held low, her dreams of a successful career slipping through her fingers like sand. But in the end, it wasn't the loss of her job that hit Brooke the hardest. It was the knowledge that she had allowed her prejudice to define her actions, that she had treated another human being as less than simply because of their background. The shame of that realization stung deeper than anything else. Meanwhile, at the heart of the city, Amara and Julian stood together, facing the future with clarity. The storm had passed, but the work was only just beginning. They had faced discrimination not with anger, but with quiet strength. Not for special treatment, but for equality. Not for vengeance, but for justice. Amara turned to Julian as they stood outside their new office, the historic building that now belonged to them. She could feel the weight of what they had accomplished. They hadn't just bought a building. They had claimed a space where everyone's worth was recognized, where no one would ever again face judgment based on their appearance or background. "We did it," Julian said softly, his voice full of resolve. "No," Amara corrected him with a smile. "We are doing it. This is just the beginning." And as they looked at the rising sun, they knew the fight wasn't over. It was only just beginning. The moral of the story is clear. Prejudice, no matter how subtle, is always a destructive force. It thrives on silence, on complacency, on unchecked assumptions. But justice, true justice, requires courage. It requires standing up when it's uncomfortable, even when it's inconvenient. It requires that we all challenge bias in ourselves and in the world around us. In this story, Amara and Julian proved that change doesn't always come with a loud roar. It can start with a quiet act of defiance, a refusal to accept injustice in silence. So stand tall, speak out, and when the time is right, let your actions do the talking. If this story resonated with you, if it inspired you to challenge prejudice, stand for fairness, and take action, then share it. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. Because together, we can make a difference.